This is the rest of part 3 of Rilke's Duino Elegies. And he himself, as he lay there, relieved, dissolving the sweetness of your gentle creation under his sleepy eyelids into the sleep he had tasted, seemed protected. But inside, who could hinder, prevent the primal flood inside him? Ah, there was little caution in the sleeper, sleeping, but dreaming, but fevered. What began there? How new, fearful, he was tangled in ever-spreading tendrils of inner event, already twisted in patterns, in strangling growths, among prowling bestial forms. How he gave himself to it, loved, loved his inward world, his inner wilderness, that first world within, on whose mute overthrow his heart stood, newly green, loved, relinquished it, went on through his own roots to the vast fountain where his little birth was already outlived, lovingly went down into more ancient bloodstreams, into ravines where horror lay, still gorged on his forefathers. And every terror knew him, winked like an informant. Yes, dread smiled, seldom. Have you smiled so tenderly, mothers? How could he help loving what smiled at him? Before you he loved it, since while you carried him, it was dissolved in the waters that render the embryo light. See, we don't love like flowers in a single year. When we love, an ancient sap rises in our arms. Oh, girls, this, that we loved inside us, not one to come, but the immeasurable seething, not a single child, but the fathers, resting on our depths like the rubble of mountains, the dry riverbeds of those who were mothers, the whole silent landscape under a clouded or clear destiny. Girls, this came before you. And you yourself, how could you know that you stirred up primordial time in your lover? What feelings welled up from lost lives? What women had tasted? What women hated you there? What sinister men you roused up in his young veins? Dead children wanted you. Oh, gently, gently, show him with love a confident daily task. Lead him near to the garden. Give him what outweighs those nights. Be in him. The fourth elegy. O trees of life, O when are you wintering? We are not unified. We have no instincts like those of migratory birds. Useless and late, we force ourselves suddenly onto the wind and fall down to an indifferent lake. We realize flowering and fading together, and somewhere lions still roam, never knowing, as long as they have their splendor, of any weakness. We, though, while we are intent on one thing, wholly, feel the loss of some other. Enmity is our neighbor. Aren't lovers always arriving at boundaries, each of the other, who promise distance, hunting and home? And when for the sketch of a moment, a contrasting background is carefully prepared so that we can see it, then this is clear to us. We do not know the contours of feeling, only what forms it from outside. Who has not sat, scared, before his heart's curtain? It drew itself up. The scenery was of departure, easy to comprehend. The familiar garden swaying a little, then the dancer appeared. Not him. Enough! However lightly he moves, he is in costume, and turns into a citizen, and goes through the kitchen into his house. I don't want these half-completed masks. Rather, the doll. That is complete. I will suffer its shell, its wire, its face of mere appearance. Here, I am waiting, even if the lights go out, even if someone says to me, no more, even if emptiness reaches me as a great drought of air from the stage, even if none of my silent forefathers sits by me anymore, not one woman, not even the boy with the brown, squinting eyes, I'll still be here. One can always watch. Am I not right? You to whom life tasted so bitter, Father, tasting mine, that first clouded infusion of my necessities, you kept on tasting as I grew, and preoccupied by the aftertaste of such a strange future, searched my misted gaze. You, my father, who since you were dead have often been anxious within my innermost hopes, and giving up calm the kingdoms of calm the dead own for my bit of fate, am I not right? And you, women, am I not right, who would love me for that small beginning of love for you that I always turned away from because of the space of your faces changed as I loved into cosmic space where you no longer existed? When I feel like waiting in front of the puppet theater? No, rather gazing at it so intently that at last, to balance my gaze, an angel must come and take part, dragging the puppets on high. Angel and doll, then there's a play at last. Then what we endlessly separate, merely by being, comes together. Then at last, from our seasons here, the orbit of all change emerges. Over and above us, then, the angel plays. See, the dying must realize that what we do here is nothing. How full of pretext it all is, nothing in itself. Oh, hours of childhood when, behind the images, there was more than the past, and in front of us was not the future. We were growing, it's true, and sometimes urged that we soon grew up, half for the sake of those others who had nothing but their grown-upness, and were yet, on our own, happy with timelessness, and stood there in the space between world and plaything, at a point that from first beginnings had been marked out for pure event. Who shows a child just as they are? Who sets it in its constellation, and gives the measure of distance into its hand? Who makes a child's death out of grey bread, that hardens, or leaves it inside its round mouth like the core of a shining apple? Killers are easy to grasp, but this, death, the whole earth, before life, to hold it so softly and not live in anger, cannot be expressed. Um, I'll read the fifth elegy in the next video.